Hey everyone, welcome back to My Sanity Hub, the place where we slow down, breathe, and explore the parts of ourselves we often ignore. And today, we're diving into something that almost every one of us struggles to understand, yet we all long for. What is self-love, and why is it so misunderstood? And to explore this with me, I have someone whose presence instantly brings peace, someone whose work has helped countless people reconnect with themselves. Please welcome Kiran, a spiritual life coach, and someone I personally look up to for her grounded wisdom. Hi, Kiran. So lovely to have you here.
Hello. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. It feels so good to be here because, honestly, self-love is such a beautiful topic, but it's also one that people often misunderstand on a very deep level.
Yes, it's like the moment we hear self-love, we immediately picture bubble baths, skincare routines, solo coffee dates, or fancy journals. And don't get me wrong, those are wonderful forms of self-care, but they aren't necessarily self-love, right?
Exactly. Those are expressions of self-love, not the foundation. True self-love isn't aesthetic, it's emotional. It's not about how you look, but about how you treat yourself when you don't look your best. It's about the voice inside your head. Is it kind or is it cruel?
That's so true. I once had a friend who looked so confident. Perfect pictures, great career, always smiling, but one day she said something that broke my heart. She said, "I only feel beautiful when someone else tells me I am." That's when I realized so many of us are living like that, constantly waiting for others to reflect our worth back to us because we've forgotten how to see it ourselves.
Yes. And that's the wound most people carry unknowingly. From childhood, we're taught that love has to be earned. Good grades mean love. Obedience means acceptance. So as adults, we keep chasing validation through relationships, success, or even likes on social media. But self-love begins when you stop chasing approval and start choosing yourself, even when nobody claps for you.
That's such a beautiful reminder, because sometimes we think self-love means always feeling good about yourself, but it's not that, is it?
Not at all. Self-love isn't about feeling good, it's about feeling safe with yourself, even when you don't feel good. It's the ability to sit with your fears, your guilt, your anger, and say, I'm still here for you. That's where healing begins, in presence, not perfection.
I love that. It's almost like building a relationship with yourself, the same way you would with someone you truly love. It takes patience, forgiveness, and a lot of honesty.
Exactly. And in this episode, we're going to explore that process from awareness to understanding to healing and finally integration. Each step brings you a little closer to yourself, to your truth, because self-love isn't something you learn, it's something you remember.
That's so beautifully said. For most of us, love isn't missing. It's just buried. Buried under years of fear, shame, comparison, and noise. And all we really need is a little guidance to dig it back up.
Exactly. And I want to leave our listeners with one thought before we dive deeper. What if the person you've been waiting for to love you, to heal you, to complete you, has been you all along?
That gave me goosebumps. So wherever you are right now, maybe you're driving, journaling, sitting quietly with your thoughts, or just lying on your bed, take a deep breath, because this conversation isn't just about understanding self-love, it's about coming home to yourself.
Beautifully said. So let's begin this journey inward with softness, awareness, and an open heart.
Kiran,
Before we even talk about self-love, I think we need to understand the first part of that phrase, the self, because most people don't really know who they are beyond what they've been told to be.
Exactly. And that's where the foundation lies. Before love comes awareness. You can't love what you don't truly know. And most of us have built our identities around our ego self, not our authentic self.
Can you explain that a little? Like, what's the difference between the ego self and the authentic self?
Of course, the ego self is the version of you that the world created. It's shaped by your upbringing, your environment, your roles, daughter, employee, friend, partner. It's the mask you wear to feel safe, accepted, and loved. But your authentic self, that's who you were before the world told you who to be. It's pure, spontaneous, curious, kind, intuitive. It doesn't need validation. It just is. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, we lose touch with that part.
That's so true. We grow up learning how to please, how to perform, how to be good enough, but no one really teaches us how to be ourselves.
Exactly. Think about it. A child is naturally authentic. If they're sad, they cry. If they're happy, they laugh. If they love something, they show it fearlessly. But as they grow, they start hearing things like, don't be so sensitive. Don't cry. Be like your brother. That's not how good girls behave. Slowly, we learn that being ourselves isn't safe. So we start to disconnect. We create versions of ourselves that the world accepts while quietly abandoning the parts that make us real.
And that disconnection becomes our default, right? We forget what we actually like, what we truly feel, what we really want.
Exactly. That's why so many people say things like, I don't know who I am anymore. It's not because they've changed too much. It's because they've forgotten who they were before the noise of the world took over. And when you lose connection with your inner self, life starts to feel like an endless performance. You might achieve things, look successful, even appear happy, but inside, there's this quiet emptiness. That's why people overthink, burn out, or feel anxious for no reason, because their outer life is moving forward, but their inner life is frozen in disconnection.
That's so true. I've actually felt that at times, like I'm doing everything right, yet feeling empty. It's like you lose touch with that inner voice that once guided you.
Right. That inner voice is your soul's language. But when we live too long as our ego self, we stop hearing it. We drown it out with distractions. Social media, work, people-pleasing, comparison. And the more we ignore it, the quieter it becomes. Until one day, you realize you can't even recognize your own reflection, not the physical one, but the emotional one.
That's powerful. And I think many listeners right now might be feeling this sense of being lost, disconnected, constantly comparing, or feeling anxious for no reason. So, Kiran, how can someone begin reconnecting with their true self? Like, what's the first step?
The first step is awareness, and awareness starts with honest reflection. Let me ask you, and everyone listening, a few questions. When was the last time you asked yourself, what do I truly want? Not what your parents expect, not what society approves of, but you. When was the last time you said no to something that didn't align with your peace? When was the last time you celebrated yourself without needing a reason? When was the last time you sat in silence and actually listened to yourself? These questions are uncomfortable at first, but they start breaking the surface. Because awareness isn't about changing anything, It's about noticing what's real.
That's beautiful. I think we underestimate how powerful self-inquiry can be. Sometimes just asking the right questions is enough to start healing. It's almost like meeting yourself again after years of absence.
Yes, self-love doesn't begin with saying, I love myself. It begins with saying, I see myself. Because before love comes awareness, and before awareness comes courage. The courage to see yourself without filters, stories, or judgment.
I love that. So, before we move into our next segment, I want to invite everyone listening. Tonight, just take 5 minutes for yourself. Sit quietly, no phone, no music, and gently ask yourself, what part of me have I been ignoring? Write it down. That's where your journey to self-love truly begins. Not in perfection, but in presence.
That's such a beautiful practice. Because awareness isn't something that happens once. It's a daily devotion to yourself. And with time, that awareness becomes the bridge that leads you back home, to your authentic self.
We'll take the short pause here. In the next segment, we'll move from awareness into understanding, what real self-love looks like and why it often feels uncomfortable at first. Stay with us. This conversation's about to get even deeper.
You know, Kiran, the more we talk about self-love, the more I realize it's not something we forget by choice. It's something we unlearn because of pain. And it's heartbreaking to think that somewhere, most of us stopped loving ourselves not because we wanted to, but because life taught us it wasn't safe to.
Yes, that's true for so many people. Self-rejection rarely begins in adulthood. It begins in childhood, quietly, slowly, in moments that didn't even look painful on the surface. A parent's constant criticism, being compared to others, not being seen or understood emotionally. All those experiences create tiny cracks in our sense of self-worth.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not even about big trauma. It's the little, repetitive moments that tell you you're not enough as you are.
Exactly. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive. Maybe your efforts were never praised. Maybe love felt conditional, like you had to earn it through being good, achieving more, or never disappointing anyone. So you start shrinking yourself. You stop expressing your emotions freely. You become the good kid, the responsible one, the people pleaser. Because as a child, you learned that being authentic led to rejection, but being pleasing led to love. And that's where self-rejection begins.
That's powerful. It makes me think, how many of us are still living from that wounded child inside us? Still trying to prove we're lovable? Still terrified of making mistakes?
Yes, that wounded child never disappears. They just grow up, wearing adult clothes, working adult jobs, being in adult relationships. But inside, they're still craving the love, safety, and approval they didn't receive back then. That's why we overthink. That's why we constantly need validation. That's why we apologize too much, even when we did nothing wrong.
Can you give an example of how those wounds show up? Something people can relate to?
Of course. Let's say someone grew up in a home where expressing emotions wasn't safe. Maybe whenever they cried, they heard, "Stop overreacting." Now, as an adult, whenever they feel emotional, they suppress it, they distract, they stay busy, they pretend everything's fine. Because deep down, their inner child believes, if I express myself, I'll be judged or abandoned. Or another example, you over-apologize, not because you're polite, but because deep down you fear disapproval. You've been trained to think that keeping everyone happy keeps you safe.
That hits home. I think so many people listening right now might realize it's not their personality, it's their protection.
Exactly. The nice girl, the overthinker, the helper, the achiever, they're not who you truly are. They're survival identities. They were created by your inner child to help you feel loved and safe. But as an adult, those same patterns become heavy because now they cost your peace. And until you see the wound, you keep trying to fix the symptom.
That's so true. It's like trying to stop the rain without looking at the clouds. I think this is where a lot of people start feeling emotional, because we realize that we've been punishing ourselves for something we didn't even create.
Yes, and this is where healing awareness comes in. It's not about blaming anyone, not your parents, not your past, not yourself. It's about finally understanding the story behind your behavior. When you realize, oh, I seek validation because I never felt seen as a child. I chase love because I was emotionally neglected. I fear rejection because I was constantly criticized. Then healing begins, because awareness brings compassion, and compassion transforms everything.
That's really beautiful. And I think that's what people need. Compassion for themselves. Because most of us are so used to judging our patterns. Like, why can't I stop overthinking? Why do I always attract the wrong people? Why do I hate myself for small mistakes? But rarely do we pause to ask, what pain inside me is asking for love?
That's the moment of truth, when you stop fighting your wounds and start listening to them. Because your wounds aren't your weakness, they're your map back to love. Every time you feel unworthy, ask yourself, whose voice is this? Is it really yours, or is it the echo of someone else's words you absorbed long ago? And then gently tell yourself, I'm safe now. I can choose differently.
That line, I'm safe now, it's so powerful because so much of our behavior isn't logical, it's emotional memory. We keep reacting from old pain without realizing we're no longer that helpless child.
Exactly. Healing awareness is about reparenting that child within you, not with harshness, but with softness, telling yourself what you always needed to hear. I see you. You did your best, and you're still enough. When you begin to love that part, the child that never felt safe, that's when self-love starts becoming real.
I feel like this is the most important step before affirmations, before confidence, before boundaries. Just understanding why you stopped loving yourself in the first place. Because without that, every healing practice stays on the surface.
Absolutely. You can't pour self-love into a heart that still feels unworthy of it. First, you have to acknowledge the wound. Then, love naturally flows in to fill it.
To everyone listening, maybe take a moment tonight to sit quietly and ask yourself, when did I first stop believing I was enough? You don't have to find the full answer. Just ask. Because the moment you ask, healing begins.
Beautifully said. Awareness was about seeing yourself. Healing awareness is about forgiving yourself. And when forgiveness starts, love finally finds its way back in.
You know, Kiran, one thing I've realized is that we're so good at loving others, forgiving them, understanding them, but when it comes to ourselves, we're harsh, impatient, and endlessly critical. We talk to ourselves in ways we never talk to someone we love.
That's so true. Self-judgment is one of the biggest blocks to self-love. It's like we've built an inner courtroom where we're the judge, the jury, and the prisoner all at once. And most of that judgment comes from old pain, from shame, guilt, fear of not being enough.
But why do we do that, Kiran? Why do we find it so hard to just be kind to ourselves?
Because somewhere along the way, we learned that love has to be earned. As children, we were rewarded for being good, quiet, perfect. So when we made mistakes, we didn't just feel bad, we felt unworthy. That pattern continues into adulthood. We keep thinking, if I achieve more, then I'll be proud of myself. If I look better, then I'll love myself. But that's not self-love. That's self-judgment disguised as motivation.
I remember doing that a lot. setting impossible standards and then punishing myself for not meeting them. It's exhausting. You live in your own mind, but it doesn't feel like home.
Exactly. And that's where self-compassion enters. Self-compassion isn't about being lazy or avoiding responsibility. It's about learning to say, it's okay. I made a mistake, but I'm still learning. I still deserve love. When we start treating ourselves with that kind of kindness, something magical happens energetically. We shift from resistance to acceptance, and that's when real healing begins.
That's beautiful. And you know what's funny is most people think guilt and shame make them better. Like, if I feel bad enough, I'll improve. But it's the opposite, isn't it?
Yes, completely the opposite. Guilt and shame create contraction. Your energy tightens, your heart closes. You can't grow from that space. Love is expansion. It opens you. So if you really want to evolve, you have to forgive yourself.
That's easier said than done, though. How do you forgive yourself for years of mistakes, regrets, or the things you should have done differently?
By realizing you did the best you could with the awareness you had back then. You weren't meant to be perfect. You were meant to learn. And one of the most powerful tools I use in my own healing and with my clients is the Ho'onopono prayer, an ancient Hawaiian practice of forgiveness. It's simple, but deeply powerful. Would you like to try it with me right now?
Yes, let's do it. I think our listeners would love that too.
All right, if you're listening to this, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Now bring to mind something you've been holding guilt for. Maybe a mistake, a regret, or a moment where you wish you had done better. Place your hand on your heart. And now, silently or aloud, repeat after me. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Feel the energy behind those words. You're not just saying them to others. You're saying them to yourself.
That's powerful. I could actually feel my chest lighten, like a quiet release.
That's the shift. Forgiveness dissolves resistance. It allows love to flow again. Every time you say those words, you reclaim a little piece of yourself that was lost in shame. And over time, that's how self-judgment transforms into self-compassion.
So, for everyone listening, maybe tonight before you sleep, look in the mirror. Don't analyze your flaws. Don't criticize your reflection. Just place your hand on your heart and say, I'm proud of you for surviving everything you thought you wouldn't. Because healing doesn't happen in big moments. It happens in these small acts of kindness towards yourself.
Exactly. And when you start speaking to yourself like someone you love, your energy, your relationships, your entire life begins to shift. You start radiating peace because you're no longer fighting with yourself.
That's so beautiful. In our next segment, we'll talk about integration. How to make self-love a living practice in your daily life, not just a concept you think about.
Yes, because awareness and healing are only half the journey. Living it, embodying it, that's where true transformation happens.
So, take another deep breath, and remember, you are doing better than you think, and you deserve the same love you keep trying to give others. You know, Kiran, throughout this conversation, we've spoken about awareness, healing, forgiveness, but I think there's another layer that most people struggle with, reconnection. Because even after healing, there's this question that lingers. How do I start trusting myself again?
Exactly. Healing is one part, but rebuilding the relationship with yourself, that's where self-love really starts taking shape. You can understand self-love intellectually, but until you practice it in daily life, it doesn't sink into your being.
That's true. So many of us don't even realize how disconnected we are from our own voice. We've spent years asking everyone else for their opinion. What should I do? Do you think this is right? Will they approve? And in that noise, we forget to ask ourselves, what do I feel?
Yes, self-trust is like a muscle that weakens when we stop using it. When you constantly ignore your intuition, doubt your feelings, or dismiss your needs, you start believing that your inner voice can't be trusted. But the truth is, your intuition never stopped speaking. You just stopped listening.
That's so powerful. And I feel like the self-doubt often shows up in the smallest ways, like second-guessing every decision, feeling anxious about choices, or overthinking how others will react.
Exactly. So to rebuild that trust, start small. For example, when your body says, I need rest, listen to it. When something feels off in your gut, acknowledge it. When your heart says, this doesn't feel right, don't force yourself to fit in. Every time you honor that inner voice, you're telling your soul, I'm listening now. You matter.
And I think boundaries play a huge part in that, right? Because when you start trusting yourself, you naturally start saying no to things that don't feel aligned.
Absolutely. Boundaries are not walls. They're bridges that protect your energy. They teach people how to love you without hurting you. But you know what stops most people from setting boundaries? Guilt. We're taught that saying no means being rude or selfish. Especially for people pleasers, boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first.
Yes, because for so long, we were told that love means self-sacrifice, that being good means always saying yes. But that's not love. That's emotional exhaustion.
Exactly. True self-love is when you stop abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. When you say no, you're not rejecting someone, you're honoring your peace. And the right people will always understand that.
That's such a liberating perspective. It reminds me of something you once said in a workshop. You teach people how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. That really stayed with me.
Yes, because your energy sets the standard. When you're gentle but firm with yourself, your relationships automatically begin to shift. It's not magic, it's energy alignment.
Let's talk about validation, because I think this is a silent struggle for so many people. How do we move from needing external validation to giving ourselves internal approval?
That's such an important question. You see, external validation isn't wrong. We all need appreciation sometimes, but it becomes toxic when it becomes our only source of worth. When your self-esteem depends on someone's reaction, a like, a compliment, an opinion, you're handing over your power. But when you practice self-approval, the dialogue changes. You start asking, do I like how I handled that? Do I feel proud of the person I was today? And that's where emotional freedom begins.
I can relate to that. I used to overthink every post, every message, wondering if people would like me. Now I remind myself, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to be real. And that shift changes everything.
Exactly. Because when you live from authenticity, validation becomes a reflection, not a requirement.
Let's make it practical for our listeners. How can someone start rebuilding their relationship with themselves every day in small, real ways?
Beautiful question. Let's make it simple. 1. Morning check-in. When you wake up, before touching your phone, ask, how do I feel today? Just acknowledging your state creates awareness. 2. Mirror moments. Look into your eyes once a day and say something kind. I see you. I love you. You're doing fine. It may feel awkward, but your soul hears you. 3. 10-minute solitude. No phone, no music, no distraction. Just sit with yourself, breathe, observe your thoughts. It's not about controlling them, it's about reconnecting. 4. Gratitude journaling. Write 3 things you appreciate about yourself. Maybe your patience, courage, or the way you showed up today. Gratitude shifts your energy instantly.
That's so simple, yet so powerful. I think many of us overcomplicate self-love, but it's really about presence, isn't it?
Yes, self-love isn't about adding something new to your life. It's about removing everything that disconnects you from yourself. It's a daily choice to show up for yourself, even when no one's watching.
That really hits home. You know, for anyone listening right now, maybe you've spent years putting everyone else first. Maybe you forgot what your own voice sounds like. But it's never too late to come back home to yourself.
Yes, start today. Not by doing something huge, but by choosing yourself in one small way. Say no when you mean no. Rest when you're tired. Speak kindly to yourself. Because that's where love begins, in these quiet, ordinary moments.
That's beautiful, Kiran.
Yes, when self-love stops being an idea and starts becoming your natural state of being.
Kiran, throughout this episode, we've spoken so much about awareness, healing, compassion, but I feel like there's still one deeper layer to this, something that goes beyond just the human experience. What about the spiritual side of self-love?
Beautiful question. Yes, there's a point in your self-love journey where it's no longer about me and my pain. It becomes about remembering who you truly are. When we say, I love myself, at a deeper level, we're actually saying, I honor the divine that lives within me.
That's such a powerful shift, right? Because for most people, self-love feels like effort, affirmations, boundaries, journaling. But you're saying that when you go beyond the ego, it becomes natural?
Exactly. When you stop identifying yourself with the ego self, that small identity that constantly says, I'm not enough, I need to fix myself, and start seeing yourself as a soul having a human experience, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing love. You become love.
That line gave me goosebumps. You stop chasing love, you become love. It's like, instead of constantly searching for worthiness, you realize you were never unworthy to begin with.
Yes, the human ego is always striving. It wants control, validation, and perfection. But the soul knows only one truth: surrender. When you start surrendering to the present moment, to divine will, to your authentic flow, that's where spiritual self-love begins.
Surrender. That's such a misunderstood word too, right? People think surrender means giving up.
Yes, but spiritual surrender isn't weakness. It's trust. It's saying, I may not know what's coming, but I know I'm guided. When you reach that space, self-love transforms into divine love. You start seeing God, not as someone separate from you, but as the consciousness that breathes through you.
That's so freeing. Because then you don't need to earn love anymore. You simply allow it to flow through your words, your silence, your imperfections.
Exactly. And this is where presence becomes your spiritual practice. When you sit in silence and feel your breath, you're not doing nothing. You're reconnecting with the divine rhythm of your being. That's pure self-love, awareness, acceptance, and alignment with your higher self. Let's do a short meditative moment together for everyone listening. Take a deep breath in and gently exhale. Now, place your hand on your heart and whisper to yourself, I am not my fears. I am not my past. I am light. I am love. I am divine. I am not my fears. I am not my past. I am light. I am love. I am divine. I am not my fears. I am not my past. I am light. I am love. I am divine. Let every word settle in your being, because the more you connect with this truth, the less you'll seek love outside of you.
That was beautiful, Kiran. And I think this is the perfect reminder to close today's episode with. That real self-love isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning home to yourself.
Yes, because the person you've been waiting for has always been you.
Thank you so much, Kiran, for this heart-opening conversation. And to everyone listening, remember, you are not broken. You're just remembering your wholeness.
Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is mine. And you guys, please do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel, My Sanity Hub. Till then, be gentle with yourself and keep coming home to you.